May 18, 1941. Kriegsmarine Headquarters, Berlin, Germany. Fregatenkapitän Wilhelm Schneider dropped the intelligence brief onto the polished mahogany table with contempt evident in every movement. His Iron Cross First Class caught the light as he pushed the document toward his colleagues. "Look at this," Schneider said, tapping the grainy reconnaissance photograph with his index finger. "The British are still flying biplanes, fabric-covered biplanes." Korvetenkapitän Hans Dietrich leaned forward, his eyes scanning the image of the Fairey Swordfish, and let out a sharp laugh. "It looks like something from the last war. Maximum speed 90 knots. We have fighters that cruise faster than their torpedo bombers can dive." Captain Sir C. Ernst Brinkmann, Chief of Naval Intelligence Analysis, shifted uncomfortably in his leather chair. "Gentlemen, I must remind you that obsolete aircraft can still carry modern torpedoes. Their crews are experienced, and their carrier operations have shown coordination." But Schneider waved him off with theatrical dismissiveness. "Experienced at what? Flying museum pieces? Our Bismarck has 15-inch guns, belt armor 13 inches thick, and can make 30 knots. We've destroyed HMS Hood in 8 minutes. The Prince of Wales fled. We sank the Glorious and both destroyer escorts in a single engagement." The mathematics are undeniable. No fabric biplane can threaten a modern battleship. What Schneider didn't know, what none of them could have known as they dismissed British naval aviation in that conference room, was that the obsolete Swordfish would cripple the Bismarck within 48 hours. The numbers would become devastating. One torpedo hit would jam Bismarck's rudder, leading to the loss of Germany's most powerful battleship with 2,086 crew. The laughter in that Berlin headquarters would become history's most expensive miscalculation, measured in tonnage lost, convoys destroyed, and the submarine war that would claim 783 U-boats before war's end. June 1940, Kiel Naval Yards, Germany. Fregatenkapitän Schneider stood on the deck of U-99, reviewing operational reports that confirmed German naval superiority. At Narvik, 8 destroyers versus 10 British destroyers and 1 battleship. British losses 6 destroyers and significant damage to the battleship. At the River Plate, Graf Spee had engaged 3 cruisers simultaneously before strategic withdrawal. In the Channel, E-boats had sunk 12 merchant vessels in 3 nights with 0 losses. Schneider's own combat record spoke volumes. 4 convoy attacks, 11 ships totaling 47,000 tons, 0 damage to his vessel. His Knight's Cross had been earned through precision and technological advantage. The newest U-boats could dive to 230 meters, cruise submerged for 80 nautical miles, and carried 14 torpedoes with magnetic detonators that detonated beneath the keel. The Type VII U-boat represented the pinnacle of submarine warfare. 769 tons surfaced, 871 tons submerged, diesel engines producing 2,800 horsepower. British anti-submarine aircraft struggled to locate submarines on the surface, and depth charges required direct proximity for effect. Captain Brinkmann reviewed intelligence assessments in his cramped office, surrounded by reports his superiors consistently dismissed. British aircraft production figures showed disturbing trends. 1,940 aircraft monthly across all types as of May 1940, with capacity increasing. The Swordfish, despite its antiquated appearance, operated from carriers that gave Britain unprecedented reach. Blackburn Aircraft was producing 40 Swordfish monthly. Fairey Aviation maintained production lines. British carrier doctrine emphasized night operations and coordinated attacks. Brinkmann had compiled data showing Swordfish operating in conditions that grounded modern aircraft: heavy weather, darkness, minimal visibility. Their low speed made them stable weapons platforms. Their fabric covering meant cannon shells passed through without triggering explosive damage. But when Brinkmann presented these findings to command, Schneider had laughed openly. "You're asking us to fear aircraft that belong in a museum? Their maximum speed is less than our surface speed. One burst from our deck guns would shred them." The mathematics seemed irrefutable. April 1940, Fairey Aviation Works, Hayes, Middlesex, England. Frederick Beddington inspected the assembly line where Swordfish TSRI number 4287 was taking shape. The Hayes facility produced 1 complete aircraft every 18 hours. Every 75 minutes, another major component section, wing, fuselage, or tail assembly, reached completion. Workers operated in 3 8-hour shifts, maintaining continuous production. The facility floor stretched 200,000 square feet under corrugated steel roofing. lit by rows of industrial lamps that burned through blackout curtains at night. In February 1939, Britain produced just 12 swordfish monthly. By September 1939, production reached 32 monthly across Fairey and Blackburn facilities. By April 1940, the Hayes facility alone was producing 43 monthly, with Blackburn adding another 37. This single facility was producing more torpedo bombers than the entire Italian Regia Aeronautica's torpedo bomber production capacity. Dorothy Richardson, previously a seamstress at a Manchester textile mill, now operated a fabric doping station that processed wing covering at a rate of 16 wing sections per 8-hour shift. She applied cellulose dope, a highly flammable nitrocellulose lacquer, to linen fabric stretched over spruce frames, each coat adding impermeability and tautness. Her station processed more wing fabric in one shift than the entire Italian Cant facility processed in a week. The doping process used 140 gallons of acetone daily at her station alone. Dorothy's hands moved with mechanical precision. Apply dope, smooth with brush, inspect for bubbles, move to next section. She produced more aircraft covering in 8 hours than Cant produced complete torpedo bombers in a month. James Mitchell from Cardiff, South Wales, operated a Bristol Pegasus engine test stand that processed 9 engines daily through full power runs. His single station's daily output exceeded entire monthly engine production at Paigio. Each engine, a 9-cylinder radial producing 690 horsepower, underwent 4 hours of testing. Idle stability, climb power, cruise power, emergency power, magneto checks, oil pressure verification, and propeller governor function. Mitchell's logs showed precise timing. Engine mounted at 800 hours, testing complete by 1200 hours, another engine mounted by 1215 hours. His test stand consumed more aviation fuel in testing than Italian combat squadrons allocated for training flights. Sir Richard Fairey, chairman and chief designer, had converted his peacetime airliner production to military aircraft at government request. He managed coordination between Hayes, Stockport, and Heaton Chapel facilities, balancing orders for Swordfish, Albacore, Battle, and Fulmer aircraft. His production planning charts showed delivery schedules extending through 1943, with monthly increases built into every projection. British factories discarded aluminum offcuts weighing 1,400 pounds daily from swordfish production. Italian aircraft plants allocated 900 pounds of aluminum monthly for repairs across their entire torpedo bomber fleet. Workers at Hayes threw away more structural aluminum in shavings and trimmed edges each day than Cant received in raw material deliveries each week. The waste from rivet drilling alone exceeded Italian monthly aluminum allocation for structural repairs. Machine shops discarded steel rod ends and wire clippings that Italian engineers carefully collected and reused. The cafeteria at Hayes discarded more meat daily, 840 pounds from breakfast, lunch, and dinner service for 4,200 workers, than Italian aircrew at Decimomanu received monthly. Fabric doping stations threw away hardened brushes that Italian maintenance crews would have cleaned and reused indefinitely. The electrical scrap wire from instrument panel production, 320 pounds weekly, could have rewired Italian aircraft production at Paigio for a month. Engine testing consumed more oil in leakage and disposal than Italian squadrons received for operational flying. Capitan Brinkman received production intelligence through neutral diplomatic channels and commercial sources. He compiled reports showing British aircraft production accelerating beyond German estimates. His analysis noted that Britain was outproducing Germany in trainer aircraft, which indicated pilot training expansion. British shipyards were launching escort carriers converted from merchant hulls. Fairey and Blackburn were expanding facilities. But Schneider dismissed the data. More obsolete biplanes won't change naval warfare. What matters is ship tonnage and submarine production. May 24, 1941. Denmark Strait, 6:03 hours. Fregatenkapitan Schneider was reviewing battle damage reports aboard Bismarck when alarm bells shattered the morning routine. British battleship HMS Prince of Wales and battlecruiser HMS Hood had made contact at 25,000 meters. At 5:52 hours, Hood opened fire. At 5:55 hours, Bismarck's fifth salvo struck Hood's ammunition magazine. At 600 hours, Hood broke in half and sank. Elapsed time from engagement to destruction, 480 seconds. Kill time, 480 seconds. At 6:02 hours, Prince of Wales turned away with heavy damage. Total engagement duration, 10 minutes. British losses: 1 battlecruiser, 1,415 crew, 1 battleship damaged and withdrawn. German losses: 3 hits on Bismarck causing minor flooding and fuel contamination, 0 casualties, operational capability maintained. Kill ratio: 1, 0 for capital ships, 1,415, 0 for personnel. The ammunition expended in this 10-minute engagement exceeded Royal Navy monthly allocation for destroyer gunnery practice in the Mediterranean. But at 1800 hours that evening, 9 Fairey Swordfish from HMS Victorious located Bismarck through heavy cloud at 120 nautical miles range. Oberleutnant Klaus Weber, stationed as air defense officer, tracked the approaching formation on radar. Their speed was impossibly slow, 95 knots, barely faster than Bismarck's flank speed. At 23:30 hours, the first Swordfish began its torpedo run. Bismarck's anti-aircraft batteries opened fire, 38 cm guns firing into the sea to create waterspouts, 15 cm secondary batteries, 10 5 cm flak guns, 37 and 20 automatic weapons. The sky filled with tracers and explosive shells. At 23:32 hours, 1 torpedo struck Bismarck amidships on the armored belt. Elapsed time from engagement to hit: 120 seconds. Damage: minimal, belt armor held. At 23:35 hours, the Swordfish formation withdrew into darkness and weather. Total engagement duration: 7 minutes. German losses: 0 aircraft shot down from 9 attackers. British losses: 0 aircraft despite flying through concentrated anti-aircraft fire. The Swordfish had absorbed hundreds of rounds. Shells passed through fabric covering without detonating. Cannon fire created holes that barely affected flight characteristics. The slow speed made deflection shooting nearly impossible. Schneider reviewed the engagement report with disbelief. 9 obsolete biplanes had attacked the world's most powerful battleship and survived. Every pilot should have been killed. The mathematics of gunnery suggested certain destruction, yet all 9 aircraft returned to victorious. He radioed assessment to Kriegsmarine headquarters. British aerial torpedo attack ineffective. Belt armor held. Recommend continuing mission. May 26, 1941. Atlantic Ocean, 2100 hours. Intelligence reports reached Captain Brinkman showing Bismarck's position compromised and British forces converging. He compiled data on British carrier operations. HMS Ark Royal operating southwest of Bismarck with Swordfish squadrons. Weather deteriorating with heavy seas and low visibility. Conditions that grounded modern aircraft but favored Swordfish operations. He transmitted warning to Fleet Command. British carrier aircraft operating in conditions exceeding normal parameters. Swordfish demonstrated survivability in previous engagement. Recommend maximum vigilance air defense. Fleet Command acknowledged but maintained confidence in Bismarck's defenses. German Command reviewed tactical options. Bismarck was 400 nautical miles from Brest. Fuel contamination from earlier hit limited range. British battleships King George V and Rodney were closing from the northwest. Cruisers Norfolk and Sheffield shadowed from optimal gunnery range. Destroyers formed distant screen. The tactical situation required reaching air cover from French bases or outrunning British pursuit. The mathematics favored Bismarck. 30 knots maximum speed versus British battleships 28 knots maximum. Superior armor against British shells. Heavier broadside weight. German naval doctrine emphasized capital ship superiority and proper execution would ensure survival. At 20:47 hours, 15 Swordfish from HMS Ark Royal located Bismarck. Oberleutnant Weber called all hands to air defense stations. At 20:53 hours, the first Swordfish entered attack pattern through heavy anti-aircraft fire. At 20:55 hours, first torpedo hit amidships, belt armor held, no significant damage. At 20:56 hours, second torpedo hit astern. At 20:57 hours, rudder jammed at 12 degrees port. Elapsed time from engagement to critical hit: 240 seconds. Damage assessment: steering control lost, maximum speed reduced to 16 knots, circular course unavoidable. At 21:01 hours, Swordfish formation withdrew. Total engagement duration: 14 minutes. German aircraft shot down, 2 from 15 attackers. British losses: 2 crews, 11 survivors. But the damage was catastrophic. Bismarck could no longer maneuver, could no longer flee, could only steam in slow circles awaiting British battleships. Captain Brinkman received reports through naval communication networks. 1 torpedo hit in precisely the vulnerable location. the stern where armor was thinnest, where rudder mechanisms concentrated. The obsolete biplane, dismissed as harmless, flying at 90 knots through storm conditions that grounded modern aircraft, had delivered the killing blow. He understood immediately. Bismarck was doomed. Without steering, without ability to reach port, the battleship would face British guns at point-blank range come morning. The mathematics had shifted catastrophically. May 27, 1941, Atlantic Ocean, 8:47 hours. Fregatenkapitan Schneider stood on Bismarck's bridge as British battleships HMS Rodney and HMS King George V opened fire at 23,000 meters. At 8:49 hours, first hit struck forward superstructure. At 8:52 hours, Bismarck's forward turrets silenced. At 9:02 hours, all main armament destroyed. At 9:15 hours, superstructure demolished. At 9:31 hours, cruiser HMS Dorsetshire closed for torpedo attack. British naval gunfire had expended 2,876 shells, 16-inch, 14-inch, 8-inch, and 6-inch in systematic destruction. The ammunition expended in this 90-minute bombardment exceeded Kriegsmarine monthly allocation for gunnery training across the entire Atlantic coast. At 10:36 hours, Bismarck capsized and sank. At 10:39 hours, Fregatenkapitan Wilhelm Schneider drowned as the battleship rolled. Elapsed time from engagement to death, 6,720 seconds. Total crew complement, 2,221. Survivors, 115. The fabric biplane he had mocked had destroyed Nazi Germany's most powerful warship. German naval doctrine held that modern battleships were invulnerable to aerial torpedo attack. The mathematics supported this conclusion. Thick belt armor, comprehensive anti-aircraft batteries, high-speed evasive maneuvers, and fighter protection. British doctrine emphasized carrier operations, coordinated attacks, and weapons delivery regardless of aircraft obsolescence. The Swordfish proved that delivery mattered more than platform modernity. Its fabric covering absorbed damage. Its slow speed complicated gunnery solutions. Its operational ceiling allowed flying beneath weather-that grounded metal monoplanes. Its crew training emphasized night and weather operations. The technological sophistication of the target was irrelevant when the weapon reached its mark. September 1941. U-99 Patrol Area Western approaches. Oberleutnant Klaus Weber transferred to submarine service after Bismarck's loss, assigned as watch officer aboard U-99 under Captain Lieutenant Otto Kretschmer. At 23:40 hours on September 16, surfaced for battery charging and diesel operation, Weber spotted aircraft navigation lights at 4,000 meters distance. At 23:41 hours, identification confirmed. Swordfish operating from land bases at night with radar equipment. At 23:42 hours, crash dive ordered. At 23:43 hours, depth charges detonated at 40 meters depth as U-99 passed 60 meters. Elapsed time from aircraft detection to attack, 180 seconds. Damage: minor, light bulbs shattered, cork insulation damaged, crew shaken. The U-boat's superior diving characteristics had saved them. Weber documented the encounter. Obsolete biplane operating at night with electronic detection equipment, attacking submerged submarine with modern depth charges. The combination was lethal. Captain Brinkman compiled operational data showing Swordfish adaptation to anti-submarine warfare. Coastal Command operated Swordfish squadrons from land bases around Britain. The aircraft carried air-to-surface radar, ASV Mk, with detection range up to 12 nautical miles against surface submarines. They operated at night when U-boats surfaced for battery charging and air circulation. They carried depth charges and rockets. Their endurance, 5 hours 45 minutes, allowed extended patrol coverage. Their low speed, 150 knots maximum, was ideal for maritime patrol, allowing careful visual searching and precise weapons delivery. British tactics emphasized coordinated operations. Aircraft detected, attacked, and marked submarine positions while surface vessels closed for kill. They tried increasing anti-aircraft armament on U-boats. The British aircraft attacked at night from multiple directions, and the Swordfish absorbed machine gun fire without critical damage. They attempted remaining submerged longer. The Swordfish radar detected periscope depth operations, and British doctrine included calling surface vessels for sustained attack. They experimented with decoy rafts and false targets. The Swordfish crews demonstrated experience in distinguishing real contacts from deceptions. They modified snorkel equipment for submerged diesel operation. The British adapted radar to detect snorkel masts and increased air patrol density. November 1941, HMS Audacity, Gibraltar convoy. At 14:20 hours on November 11, convoy HG-76 departed Gibraltar with 32 merchant vessels escorted by sloop HMS Dipford, 8 corvettes, and escort-carrier HMS Audacity with 4 Swordfish embarked. Captain Lieutenant Klaus Scholz in U-108 made initial contact at 16:40 hours, transmitted convoy position and composition to U-boat headquarters, and shadowed from maximum visual range. At 18:20 hours, additional U-boats began converging. U-67, U-107, U-131, U-434, and U-574. German doctrine called for coordinated night surface attacks exploiting superior surface speed and multiple approach vectors. The mathematics favored submarines, 5 U-boats with 70 torpedoes against 32 merchants with limited escort capability. Previous convoy battles showed expected results: 40% merchant losses, possible escort sinkings, 0 U-boat losses. At 19:50 hours, Swordfish from Audacity located U-131 on surface at 16 nautical miles from convoy. At 19:53 hours, depth charge attack damaged U-131's pressure hull and forced surface. At 19:57 hours, corvette HMS Penstamen arrived and sank U-131 with gunfire. Elapsed time from detection to kill, 420 seconds. At 21:15 hours, second Swordfish detected U-434 at 12 nautical miles. At 21:18 hours, attack run forced emergency dive. At 21:20 hours, escort destroyer arrived for depth charge attack. U-434 sustained severe damage and withdrew from operation. At 23:40 hours, third Swordfish located U-574 shadowing convoy. At 23:43 hours, illumination flares marked position. At 23:46 hours, HMS Penstamen rammed and sank U-574. Elapsed time from aircraft detection to kill, 360 seconds. Total engagement duration for convoy defense, 6 hours, 45 minutes. U-boat losses, 2 confirmed sunk, 1 damaged and withdrawn, 2 driven off. Merchant losses, 0 during night action. The obsolete biplanes had defeated coordinated wolf pack tactics. Oberleutnant Weber observed the action from U-108, maintaining maximum distance from convoy. He documented Swordfish operations: continuous air patrol maintaining 2 aircraft airborne throughout darkness, immediate response to surface submarines, coordination with surface escorts, and sustained pressure preventing attack positions. The aircraft operated in weather conditions: 18-knot winds, 3-meter seas, broken cloud at 400 meters. That would have challenged modern naval aircraft. Their radar detected surface submarines before visual contact. Their endurance allowed hours of patrol coverage. Their ability to operate from small escort carriers meant convoys carried integral air defense. Weber transmitted assessment to headquarters: enemy air operations deny surface attack opportunities. Recommend daylight submerged approaches. But daylight submerged approaches limited range and prevented optimal attack positions. March 1942. Fairey Aviation Facilities, multiple locations. At Hayes, production had increased to 63 Swordfish monthly. At Stockport, another facility added 41 monthly. At Blackburn in Sherburne and Elmet, production reached 57 monthly. Combined British Swordfish production reached 161 aircraft monthly. Every 4.5 hours, another Swordfish completed final assembly somewhere in Britain. This single aircraft type's production exceeded entire German naval aviation torpedo bomber production. Britain was producing more obsolete biplanes than Germany was producing modern torpedo bombers, and the obsolete design was proving more operationally effective. British factories discarded wing spar offcuts totaling 2,100 pounds weekly. German facilities allocated 1,400 pounds monthly for structural repairs across all naval aviation. Workers threw away fabric scraps from doping operations that weighed 840 pounds weekly. German naval aviation rationed fabric by the square meter for repair operations. The waste from engine testing, pistons rejected for minor tolerances, cylinder barrels with microscopic flaws, propeller blades with grain irregularities, exceeded German monthly spare parts allocation. Cafeteria waste at Hayes alone, vegetable scraps, meat trim, bread ends, and spilled milk, provided more calories daily than German naval aircrew received in weekly rations. Aluminum shavings swept up and discarded each shift could have built 40 engine cowlings. Doped fabric rejected for minor bubbles or irregularities exceeded monthly consumption at German repair facilities. The electrical wire waste from instrument panel production could have rewired a squadron of Heinkel He 115s. Broken or dull drill bits discarded daily at Stockport exceeded German tool allocation for a month of production operations. Britain-operated Swordfish from fleet carriers: HMS Ark Royal, HMS Victorious, HMS Furious, HMS Illustrious, HMS Formidable, HMS Indomitable. From escort carriers: HMS Audacity, HMS Avenger, HMS Biter, HMS Dasher, HMS Archer, and 23 more under construction. From land bases: 16 coastal command squadrons operating from stations around Britain's coast. From merchant aircraft carriers: converted grain ships and tankers with flight decks for convoy protection. Every convoy could have air cover. Every coastal area had patrol aircraft. Every fleet operation included carrier support. The obsolete biplane had become ubiquitous through sheer production volume and operational versatility. Captain Brinkman compiled comprehensive assessment for Kriegsmarine Command. British Swordfish production: 1,932 aircraft annually across 3 facilities. German He 115 production: 400 aircraft annually. British operations demonstrated integration of obsolete aircraft with modern detection equipment and tactics. Swordfish squadrons sank 12 U-boats confirmed between September 1941 and March 1942, damaged 23 others forcing withdrawal, and prevented successful attack on 47 convoys through continuous patrol operations. Single aircraft type was inflicting strategic impact, exceeding entire German naval aviation capability. Brinkman's analysis concluded: technological superiority is irrelevant when inferior technology is produced in overwhelming volume and employed with effective tactics. We underestimated British industrial capacity and operational doctrine. The mathematics have become unfavorable. April 1942, Atlantic U-boat operations. At 3:40 hours on April 8, U-252 under Captain Lieutenant Wolfgang Lurchen surfaced in western approaches for battery charging. At 3:42 hours, lookout spotted Swordfish at 3,000 meters closing rapidly. At 3:43 hours, crash dive ordered. At 3:44 hours, depth charges detonated at 30 meters as U-252 passed 70 meters. At 3:47 hours, second attack run delivered 4 depth charges at 50 meters depth. At 3:51 hours, pressure hull damage forced emergency surface. At 3:54 hours, Swordfish delivered rocket attack, killing deck crew and damaging conning tower. At 3:58 hours, corvette HMS Stork arrived and began gunfire. At 4:12 hours, U-252 scuttled. Elapsed time from aircraft detection to submarine loss: 1,920 seconds. German crew: 43, survivors: 38 captured. The obsolete biplane had destroyed a modern submarine in 19 minutes. At 15:20 hours on April 15, U-573 under Oberleutnant Heinrich Heinsohn engaged convoy on 92 at periscope depth. At 15:23 hours, Swordfish from escort-carrier detected periscope wake. At 15:26 hours, depth charge attack forced emergency surface. At 15:29 hours, damage assessment showed pressure hull cracked, 1 diesel damaged, battery acid leaking. At 15:32 hours, U-573 withdrew at surface maximum speed. At 15:45 hours, second Swordfish maintained contact and directed escorts. At 16:07 hours, unable to dive, facing certain destruction, Heinsohn steered for neutral Spanish waters. At 16:40 hours, U-573 interned at Cartagena. Elapsed time from detection to mission kill: 4,200 seconds. The submarine never returned to German service. At 22:10 hours on April 23, U-434 under Captain Lieutenant Wolfgang Hader attacked convoy on 92. At 22:12 hours, 2 torpedoes struck merchant vessel. At 22:14 hours, Swordfish from HMS Tracker detected U-434 on surface reloading. At 22:16 hours, illumination flares marked position. At 22:18 hours, depth charge attack. At 22:20 hours, U-434 emergency dive. At 22:35 hours, sustained depth charge attack by coordinated escorts. At 22:42 hours, oil slick and debris surfaced. U-434 destroyed with all hands. Elapsed time from aircraft detection to kill, 1,680 seconds. The ammunition expended in this engagement, depth charges, rockets, and escort vessel weapons, exceeded U-boat monthly allocation for torpedo reloads across Atlantic operations. Oberleutnant Weber compiled data from U-boat command records. April 1942, 7 U-boats sunk by swordfish-directed attacks, 4 damaged and forced to abort patrol, 13 forced to submerge and lost convoy contact, 0 swordfish destroyed in anti-submarine operations. British tactics proved devastating. Continuous air patrol denied surface operations, radar detection prevented surprise approaches, coordination with escorts ensured rapid response, and sustained attacks exploited submarine vulnerability to air power. German countermeasures proved ineffective. Increased anti-aircraft armament was useless against night attacks, remaining submerged prevented attack positions, and surface flight denied U-boats their mobility advantage. June 1942, Western Approaches Command, Liverpool. British operational analysis showed swordfish effectiveness in anti-submarine warfare exceeding modern aircraft. Coastal Command's Bristol Beaufort squadrons achieved 0.7 kills per 100 flying hours. Hudson squadrons achieved 0.9 kills per 100 hours. Catalina squadrons achieved 1.1 kills per 100 hours. Swordfish squadrons achieved 1.4 kills per 100 hours despite obsolete airframe design. The key factors: superior low-speed handling for visual searching, exceptional endurance allowing extended patrol coverage, ability to operate from escort carriers providing organic convoy defense, pilot training emphasizing maritime operations and night flying, and weapons load sufficient for submarine destruction. Monthly production and deployment figures demonstrated industrial capacity. 161 Swordfish produced monthly, 840 aircrew in training pipeline monthly, 48 squadrons operational across fleet carriers, escort carriers, merchant aircraft carriers, and land bases. Britain was producing more obsolete torpedo bombers in 1 month than Germany produced modern torpedo bombers in 3 months. British training facilities graduated more swordfish crews monthly than Germany graduated all naval aviation crews. The technological inferiority of the platform was irrelevant when production volume and crew availability provided overwhelming operational presence. Workers at Fairey aviation facilities operated with mechanical efficiency. Sarah Thompson from Birmingham operated fuselage welding station, producing 16 fuselage frames per shift. Her single station's daily output exceeded entire weekly fuselage production at Italian Cant facilities. Michael O'Brien from Glasgow operated wing assembly station that completed 11 wing sets per shift. Robert Chen from Southampton operated engine installation station that fitted 9 complete power plants per shift, including all controls, fuel lines, oil lines, and electrical connections. Each worker's individual daily production exceeded comparable German facility weekly output. Americans observing British production methods documented waste that shocked visiting engineers. Dorothy Richardson's fabric doping station discarded hardened brushes weekly, 70 brushes monthly, that German facilities would have cleaned in solvent and reused indefinitely. Engine test stands consumed 4,200 gallons of aviation fuel monthly in testing engines before installation. German facilities allocated 3,100 gallons monthly for testing across their entire naval aviation program. Aluminum scrap from drilling rivet holes totaled 1,840 pounds monthly at Hayes facility. German aluminum allocation for structural repairs across all naval aviation was 1,200 pounds monthly. The single British facility's waste exceeded Germany's total allocation. Electrical wire offcuts thrown away weekly could have rewired Germany's entire He-115 fleet. Fabric scraps rejected for minor imperfections exceeded monthly consumption at German repair depots. Cafeteria food waste from one facility exceeded weekly rations for 3 German naval air squadrons. September 1942, Convoy PQ-18, Arctic Ocean. Convoy PQ-18 departed Lock U on September 2 with 40 merchant vessels carrying war supplies to Soviet Union. Escort included 16 destroyers, 4 corvettes, 4 trawlers, 2 anti-aircraft ships, 1 rescue ship, and escort carrier HMS Avenger with 12 Swordfish embarked. German operations committed 40 U-boats and 180 aircraft from Luftwaffe bases in Norway. The mathematics appeared unfavorable for the convoy. Massive Axis air and submarine concentration against vulnerable merchant vessels in confined waters. Previous convoy PQ-17 had lost 24 of 35 ships without carrier protection. German command anticipated similar results. At 1340 hours on September 13, 60 Heinkel He-111 torpedo bombers attacked convoy. At 1342 hours, Swordfish fighter patrols engaged bombers before torpedo release. At 1345 hours, coordinated anti-aircraft fire from escorts and merchants created defensive barrage. At 1352 hours, German attack pressed through losses. At 1358 hours, 8 merchant vessels torpedoed and sinking. At 1405 hours, German bombers withdrew. At 1410 hours, assessment showed 8 merchants lost but 32 surviving due to fighter defense preventing coordinated attack. Elapsed time for engagement, 25 minutes. German aircraft losses, 19 bombers destroyed by Swordfish and anti-aircraft fire. British losses, 3 Swordfish in air combat. Kill ratio, 19, 3 favoring obsolete biplanes against modern bombers. At 2140 hours, U-boats began surface approach for night attack. At 2143 hours, Swordfish radar patrol detected U-408 at 14 nautical miles. At 2146 hours, illumination flares marked position. At 2149 hours, depth charge attack forced emergency dive. At 2152 hours, escorts arrived for sustained attack. At 2155 hours, U-408 destroyed. Elapsed time from detection to kill, 720 seconds. At 2230 hours, second Swordfish detected U-589 at 11 nautical miles. At 2233 hours, rocket attack damaged pressure hull. At 2237 hours, U-589 forced to surface. At 2241 hours, destroyer HMS Onslow sank U-589 with gunfire. Elapsed time, 660 seconds. At 1:20 hours on September 14, third Swordfish detected U-457. At 1:23 hours, attack forced dive. At 1:25 hours, escorts depth charged area. U-457 sustained damage and withdrew. Total night engagement duration, 4 hours 40 minutes. U-boat losses, 2 destroyed, 1 damaged, 7 forced away from attack positions. Merchant losses during night, 0. Convoy PQ-18 arrived Archangel on September 21 with 32 of 40 merchants surviving, 80% survival rate compared to 31% for unprotected PQ-17. German losses, 21 aircraft, 3 U-boats. British losses, 3 Swordfish, 1 destroyer, 8 merchants. The obsolete biplane had proven decisive in Arctic convoy defense. Luftwaffe torpedo bombers, modern aircraft with retractable landing gear, enclosed cockpits and superior speed, had been defeated by fabric biplanes with fixed landing gear and open cockpits. U-boats equipped with superior torpedoes and diving capabilities had been hunted by aircraft designed before the war began. Kapitän Brinkmann drafted comprehensive analysis for Oberkommando der Marine. PQ-18 demonstrated integrated carrier operations denying German tactical advantages. Continuous air patrol prevented surprise attacks. Radar detection eliminated surface approach opportunities. Fighter defense disrupted bomber formations. Coordination between air and surface assets created defensive network that withstood concentrated assault. The Swordfish, obsolete by every technical measure, had provided capability that modern German aircraft could not counter. His report concluded, "We face not technological superiority but systematic operational integration of available resources. British industrial capacity produces obsolete aircraft faster than we can destroy them. Their doctrine employs these aircraft more effectively than our modern equipment performs. We are losing the mathematics of attrition." December 1942, U-boat operational analysis, Lorient. Oberleutnant Weber reviewed operational data from U-boat headquarters showing Swordfish impact on Atlantic campaign. January through December 1942, 47 U-boats sunk or damaged by aircraft-directed attacks, 127 convoy contacts prevented by air patrol forcing submerged operations, 38 wolf pack attacks disrupted by carrier-based fighters. Swordfish squadrons alone accounted for 19 confirmed U-boat kills, 31 damage reports forcing patrol termination, and 64 successful convoy defenses. The obsolete biplane was inflicting greater operational impact than all coastal command's modern bombers combined. German intelligence documented British production continuing at accelerated pace. Hayes facility now producing 69 Swordfish monthly, Stockport producing 44 monthly, Blackburn producing 61 monthly. Combined production, 174 aircraft monthly, 2,088 annually. Britain had produced more Swordfish in 1942 than Germany produced total naval aircraft across all types. British training schools graduated 1,140 Swordfish crews in 1942, more crews than Germany trained for all naval aviation roles. The mathematics were overwhelming. Britain could lose 10 Swordfish for every one produced and still expand squadron strength through production surplus. Operational modifications enhanced Swordfish effectiveness. ASV Mk radar provided improved detection range and resolution. Rocket projectiles, 8 per aircraft, increased anti-submarine lethality. Improved depth charges with better hydrostatic fuses increased kill probability. Night operations equipment including landing lights and radio altimeters enabled all-weather capability. Each modification added capability to obsolete airframe without requiring new aircraft production. Britain was updating old designs faster than Germany could field new ones. German responses proved inadequate. U-boats mounting additional anti-aircraft weapons sacrificed diving speed and increased detection profile. Remaining submerged during convoy approaches reduced attack effectiveness and prevented optimal firing positions. Operating in packs for mutual defense concentrated targets for air patrol. Every tactical adaptation created new vulnerabilities exploited by British doctrine emphasizing carrier-based patrol operations. March 1943, North Atlantic convoy routes. At 8:20 hours on March 12, convoy HX-229 under air cover from escort-carrier HMS Biter encountered Wolfpack Robgraf consisting of 17 U-boats. At 8:22 hours, 4 Swordfish established patrol pattern around convoy at 10 nautical mile radius. At 8:45 hours, U-664 detected on surface at 12 miles. At 8:47 hours, depth charge attack forced emergency dive. At 8:49 hours, U-664 withdrew from area. At 9:10 hours, U-91 detected at 14 miles. At 9:12 hours, rocket attack damaged conning tower. At 9:14 hours, destroyer escort depth charged area. U-91 sustained damage and aborted patrol. At 9:35 hours, U-228 detected at 11 miles. At 9:37 hours, illumination flares marked position. At 9:39 hours, coordinated attack by aircraft and escorts. At 9:43 hours, U-228 destroyed. Elapsed time from detection to kill, 480 seconds. Engagement continued through daylight hours. At 12:05 hours, U-600 detected. Attack run forced dive. At 13:10 hours, U-409 detected. Rocket attack caused damage. At 14:25 hours, U-441 detected. Depth charges forced withdrawal. At 15:40 hours, U-665 detected attempting approach on convoy surface. At 15:42 hours, attack run. At 15:45 hours, U-665 destroyed. Elapsed time, 300 seconds. At 16:50 hours, U-333 detected. Sustained attack forced abort. At 18:05 hours, U-757 detected at dusk. Night attack procedure with flares and radar guidance. At 18:12 hours, U-757 damaged and withdrawn. Total engagement duration, 10 hours, 52 minutes. U-boat losses, 2 destroyed, 3 damaged and forced to abort patrol, 12 prevented from achieving attack position. Merchant losses, 0 during daylight hours under air cover. German Wolf Pack doctrine concentrates submarines for overwhelming attack, defeated by continuous air patrol maintaining detection and attack capability throughout engagement period. The ammunition expended by Swordfish aircraft and coordinated escorts exceeded Kriegsmarine monthly allocation for torpedo reloads across entire U-boat fleet in Atlantic. The fuel consumed by continuous air operations exceeded German naval aviation monthly allocation for training flights. At 21:20 hours, air cover withdrew as Swordfish reached maximum endurance and night operations began. At 22:45 hours without air patrol, U-boats achieved surface approach. At 23:10 hours through 1:40 hours, 6 U-boats pressed coordinated attack. At morning assessment, 8 merchants torpedoed and sunk, 1 escort damaged. The contrast demonstrated Swordfish effectiveness. 10 hours of air coverage yielded 0 merchant losses. 4 hours without coverage yielded 8 losses. The obsolete biplane's presence was worth more than entire surface escort in preventing submarine attacks. May 1943, Bay of Biscay anti-submarine patrols. Coastal Command Swordfish squadrons operating from land bases at St. Eval, Pembroke Dock, and Limavady established patrol patterns covering U-boat transit routes through Bay of Biscay. German submarines leaving French bases for Atlantic operations required surface transit through Bay for battery charging and optimal speed. British doctrine called for constant patrol forcing submarines to remain submerged during transit, reducing battery charge and delaying operational deployment. At 1440 hours on May 3, Swordfish from 812 Squadron detected U-952 on surface at 40 nautical miles southwest of Brest. At 1443 hours, attack run initiated. At 1445 hours, 4 depth charges straddled submarine. At 1447 hours, U-952 emergency dive with pressure hull damage. At 1520 hours, unable to repair damage, U-952 surfaced and returned to Brest. Patrol abort, mission kill achieved without destruction. Elapsed time from detection to mission kill, 2,400 seconds. At 9:20 hours on May 8, Swordfish detected U-266 transiting surface. At 9:22 hours, rocket attack struck conning tower, killing commander and damaging pressure hull. At 9:25 hours, U-266 attempted to dive. At 9:27 hours, flooding prevented submergence. At 9:32 hours, U-266 crew abandoned ship. At 9:35 hours, submarine sank. Elapsed time from detection to destruction, 900 seconds. Survivors recovered, 18. At 1650 hours on May 14, Swordfish Patrol detected U-456 on surface. At 1652 hours, attack initiated. At 1654 hours, depth charges detonated ahead of submarine. At 1655 hours, U-456 crash dive. At 1710 hours, oil slick indicated pressure hull damage. U-456 returned to base with patrol aborted. Mission kill achieved. May 1943 statistics for Bay of Biscay Swordfish operations. 147 patrol missions flown, 19 U-boat contacts, 4 U-boats destroyed, 7 damaged and forced to abort patrol, 8 forced to submerge and delayed. The obsolete biplane was achieving 1 U-boat kill or mission kill per 37 patrol missions, equivalent effectiveness to modern Liberator and Wellington bomber squadrons, while operating from simpler bases with less sophisticated support requirements. July 1943. Mediterranean Operations, Sicily Campaign. Operation Husky Invasion of Sicily employed 6 escort carriers with Swordfish squadrons providing anti-submarine screen for invasion fleet. At 3:40 hours on July 10, U-561 attempted approach on invasion transports. At 3:42 hours, Swordfish from HMS Battler detected submarine on radar at 8 nautical miles. At 3:44 hours, illumination flares marked position. At 3:46 hours, depth charge attack. At 3:48 hours, U-561 forced to surface with damage. At 3:51 hours, destroyer HMS Paladin arrived and sank U-561 with gunfire. Elapsed time from detection to destruction, 660 seconds. At 16:20 hours on July 11, U-409 detected approaching invasion fleet. At 16:22 hours, Swordfish Patrol located submarine on surface. At 16:24 hours, attack run initiated. At 16:26 hours, rocket attack struck pressure hull. At 16:28 hours, U-409 unable to dive, crew abandoned ship. At 16:31 hours, submarine sank. Elapsed time, 540 seconds. At 22:50 hours on July 12, Italian submarine Romulo attempted night surface attack on anchored transports. At 22:52 hours, Swordfish detected submarine on radar. At 22:54 hours, depth charge attack. At 22:56 hours, Romulo damaged and forced to withdraw. At 23:15 hours, second Swordfish maintained contact and directed destroyer HMS Lafori to position. At 23:28 hours, Romulo sunk by destroyer depth charges. Elapsed time from initial detection to destruction, 2,280 seconds. Sicily invasion fleet protection statistics. 11 escort carriers with 64 Swordfish embarked. 1,247 patrol missions flown during invasion period July 10-17 23 submarine contacts, 7 submarines destroyed, 9 forced to withdraw with damage, 7 prevented from achieving attack position. Merchant and transport losses to submarine attack during invasion. 0 ships sunk, 2 damaged. The obsolete biplane had provided comprehensive anti-submarine defense for largest amphibious operation in history to that date. German and Italian submarine commanders reported operations impossible under continuous air patrol. Surface approaches detected immediately by radar. Submerged approaches too slow to reach attack positions. Periscope observations detected by alert patrol aircraft. The mathematics had shifted completely. Submarine survival required avoiding contact with swordfish patrols rather than attempting to evade detection and attack. Captain Brinkman's analysis noted, submarine warfare doctrine assumes surface mobility for approach and attack. Continuous air patrol denies this mobility. Obsolete aircraft with modern sensors and weapons create operational environment where submarine advantages disappear. October 1943, Arctic Convoy JW-54B. Convoy JW-54B departed Lock U on October 29 with 15 merchant vessels, destroyer Escort, and escort-carrier HMS Campania with 18 swordfish. German operations committed 20 U-boats and surface forces including battle cruiser Scharnhorst. At 6:40 hours on November 2, U-957 made contact with convoy. At 6:42 hours, Swordfish radar patrol detected submarine on surface at 13 nautical miles. At 6:44 hours, attack initiated. At 6:46 hours, depth charges forced emergency dive. At 6:48 hours, U-957 damaged, unable to maintain contact, withdrew from operations. Elapsed time, 360 seconds. At 14:20 hours, U-601 attempted submerged approach. At 14:22 hours, Swordfish Patrol observed periscope wake. At 14:24 hours, depth charge attack forced U-601 to deep depth, losing contact with convoy. At 15:10 hours on November 3, U-387 detected at 12 miles. At 15:12 hours, rocket attack struck conning tower. At 15:14 hours, U-387 forced to surface. At 15:18 hours, destroyer HMS Whitehall arrived and sank U-387 with gunfire and depth charges. Elapsed time from aircraft detection to destruction, 480 seconds. At 8:20 hours on November 4, German surface forces including Scharnhorst attempted interception. At 8:22 hours, Swordfish Reconnaissance Patrol detected surface force at 40 nautical miles. At 8:25 hours, sighting report transmitted to Fleet Command. At 8:40 hours, British cruiser force maneuvered to intercept. At 9:15 hours, Scharnhorst engaged cruisers, sustained damage, withdrew. Swordfish shadowing reports maintained contact throughout engagement, allowing coordinated response. At 12:20 hours, battleship HMS Duke of York intercepted Scharnhorst based on aircraft reports. At 16:50 hours, Scharnhorst sank. The obsolete biplane's reconnaissance had enabled destruction of Germany's last operational battlecruiser. Convoy JW-54B arrived Soviet ports on November 9 with all 15 merchants intact. U-boat losses, 2 destroyed, 4 damaged and forced to abort. Surface force losses, Scharnhorst destroyed. British losses, 0 merchants, 0 major combat vessels, 2 swordfish lost to weather. The obsolete biplane had provided anti-submarine defense and reconnaissance, enabling comprehensive convoy protection in most dangerous waters. January 1944, Western Approaches Command Assessment. British operational analysis compiled comprehensive data on Swordfish contribution to Battle of Atlantic. January 1941 through December 1943. 168 U-boats destroyed or damaged by Swordfish-directed attacks, representing 21% of total U-boat losses for period. 847 convoys protected by Swordfish air cover, with 4.3% merchant loss rate, compared to 14% loss rate for convoys without air cover. The obsolete biplane was directly responsible for protecting 10.7% of total convoy tonnage delivered to Britain and Soviet Union during critical 3-year period. Production statistics demonstrated industrial capacity exceeding operational requirements. Total Swordfish produced 1940-1943, 1,936 aircraft. Total losses to all causes, 892 aircraft. Net surplus, 1,044 aircraft allowing continuous expansion of squadron strength, replacement of weather losses, and maintenance of training pipeline. Britain produced more obsolete torpedo bombers during the war than Germany produced modern torpedo bombers, and sustained operations through production surplus, while Germany struggled with equipment shortages. German U-boat operational data showed systematic degradation of effectiveness, coinciding with expansion of swordfish anti-submarine operations. Average monthly merchant tonnage sunk per operational U-boat. 1941 first quarter 850 tons, 1941 fourth quarter 580 tons, 1942 fourth quarter 340 tons, 1943 fourth quarter 120 tons. The decline correlated directly with increased air patrol coverage provided by escort-carrier and land-based swordfish squadrons. The obsolete biplane was achieving strategic impact, exceeding modern aircraft through operational integration and sustained production volume. March 1944, Kriegsmarine Headquarters Assessment, Berlin. Kapitän Zur C. Ernst Brinkmann, now promoted to Admiral and Chief of Naval Intelligence, prepared final assessment of swordfish impact on naval operations for Oberkommando der Wehrmacht. His analysis was comprehensive and devastating. Bismarck lost May 1941 due to swordfish torpedo attack jamming rudder, leading to destruction by British battleships. Crew losses, 2,086. Operational impact, Germany's most powerful battleship eliminated from service after single mission. Strategic impact, forced abandonment of surface raider operations in Atlantic. Financial cost, 196 million Reichsmarks construction cost, irreplaceable production capacity. U-boat losses, 168 submarines destroyed or damaged by swordfish-directed attacks 1941-1944. Crew losses, 7,392 submariners. Operational impact, 21% of total U-boat losses attributed to obsolete biplane. Strategic impact, continuous reduction in U-boat effectiveness as air patrol coverage expanded. Financial cost, 252 million Reichsmarks construction cost, irreplaceable submarine production capacity. Convoy protection, 847 convoys provided swordfish air cover with 93% merchant survival rate. Tonnage protected, approximately 14.8 million gross registered tons delivered to Britain and Soviet Union. Strategic impact, sustained Allied logistics enabling continued operations. British continued resistance enabled by industrial capacity delivered through protected convoys. Scharnhorst lost December 1943 after swordfish reconnaissance enabled interception by British battleship. Crew losses, 1,968. Operational impact, elimination of last operational German capital ship capable of commerce raiding. Strategic impact, complete German surface fleet neutralization. Total strategic impact, obsolete biplane designed in 1933, entering service 1936, continued operations through 1945 despite technological obsolescence, achieved decisive strategic results through production volume and operational integration. German technological superiority in aircraft design, submarine design, and surface combatant design proved irrelevant against British industrial capacity and tactical doctrine. Brinkmann's conclusion: we underestimated British capacity to produce and employ obsolete equipment effectively. We assumed technological superiority would overcome numerical inferiority. We dismissed the swordfish as harmless museum piece. This dismissal cost us Bismarck, 168 U-boats, Scharnhorst, and ultimately the Battle of Atlantic. The mathematics we found irrefutable in 1941 became catastrophically wrong. They produced more obsolete aircraft than we could destroy. Their free workers in dispersed factories outproduced our concentrated production. Their doctrine integrated old equipment with new sensors and weapons more effectively than our modern designs performed. We brought technological sophistication to industrial war and were buried under production volume. May 1945, Interrogation Facility, Portsmouth, England. Kapitän Zur C. Ernst Brinkmann, captured after Germany's surrender, provided testimony to British naval intelligence regarding German assessment of swordfish operations throughout the war. We were not defeated by superior aircraft, but by superior production. Your swordfish was obsolete before the war began. Fabric covering, fixed landing gear, open cockpit, maximum speed slower than our cruising speed, by every technical measure inferior to our equipment. But you produced 2,391 of them. We produced 400 He-115s. You operated from fleet carriers, escort carriers, merchant carriers, and land bases. We operated from shore bases with limited range. You integrated radar and modern weapons with old airframe. We designed new aircraft. Your obsolete design achieved strategic results. Our modern aircraft achieved tactical successes. The single facility at Hayes produced more Swordfish than our entire naval aviation industry produced torpedo bombers. This single British aircraft type sank more U-boats than all our destroyers, mines, and submarine losses combined. The mathematics were overwhelming. Oberleutnant Klaus Weber, now Captain Lieutenant, survived the war and provided separate testimony. I watched Bismarck destroyed after Swordfish jammed our rudder. I served on U-boats hunted by Swordfish with radar. I observed convoy battles where obsolete biplanes defeated modern bombers and submarines. Your aircraft should not have been effective, but they were everywhere. Every convoy had air cover. Every transit route was patrolled. Every operation faced detection. You didn't just outproduce us. You revolutionized doctrine. You put old airframes on small carriers. You operated in weather that grounded our modern aircraft. You flew at night when we relied on surface speed. You coordinated air and surface forces seamlessly. We had better submarines, better torpedoes, better training. You had more aircraft, more carriers, more production capacity. The abundance of obsolete aircraft defeated the quality of modern submarines. Additional testimony from U-boat commanders provided comprehensive picture. We brought precision torpedoes with magnetic detonators to war against defended convoys with air cover. They brought obsolete biplanes with radar and unlimited production. We could sink individual ships. They could protect entire convoys. Our technological edge was meaningless when every convoy had aircraft overhead. Their excess carrier capacity exceeded our maximum submarine production. They could lose 2 escort carriers and replace them in weeks. We could lose 2 U-boats and wait months for replacements. The industrial mathematics made victory impossible. They could lose 50 Swordfish and build 50 more in 1 month. We would lose 5 He-115s and need 3 months for replacement. They operated with surplus capacity. We operated with critical shortages. You cannot win war of attrition when enemy can replace losses faster than you can inflict them. The British demonstrated that obsolete equipment employed with effective doctrine defeats modern equipment hampered by inadequate production. We learned too late that wars are won in factories, not design bureaus. Their workers in Birmingham and Manchester defeated our engineers in Augsburg and Friedrichshafen. Production statistics stated by German assessment. British Swordfish production 1936-1945. 2,391 aircraft total from 3 facilities. German He-115 production 1937-1944. 400 aircraft total across all facilities. British escort carrier construction. 26 vessels. German aircraft carrier construction. 0 vessels completed. British anti-submarine aircraft production all types. 8,400 aircraft. German anti-submarine aircraft production all types. 1,200 aircraft. Single facility at Hayes produced more anti-submarine aircraft than entire German military aviation industry. British dispersed production in multiple facilities survived bombing. German concentrated production became strategic target. Free workers produced more per capita than forced labor. Democratic industrial cooperation exceeded totalitarian command economy output. The mathematics of industrial war favored the democratic nation with distributed production capacity. Final assessment: the lesson of industrial democracy. The Fairey Swordfish proved that free societies outproduce authoritarian regimes when fully mobilized. British factory workers, women from textile mills, men from automotive plants, managers from peacetime corporations, exceeded German production despite smaller industrial base and sustained bombing campaign. The Hayes facility with 4,200 workers produced more combat aircraft than Focke-Wulf with 8,900 workers. Blackburn with 3,800 workers exceeded Heinkel's naval aviation production with 6,400 workers. Free labor outproduced forced labor. Dispersed facilities survived better than concentrated production. Democratic cooperation exceeded authoritarian command. The Swordfish demonstrated that operational doctrine matters more than technological superiority. Britain integrated obsolete airframe with modern sensors, contemporary weapons, and effective tactics. Germany designed modern aircraft, but failed to produce sufficient numbers or develop doctrine exploiting their capabilities. British carrier operations put aircraft at point of need. German shore-based operations required extended transit, reducing time on station. British coordinated air and surface forces. German operated submarines independently. The systematic application of available resources exceeded sporadic employment of superior equipment. Industrial abundance buried technological sophistication under weight of production volume. Britain produced 2,391 Swordfish at average, cost £7,300 per aircraft. Total investment £17.5 million. Germany produced 400 He-115s at average, cost 140,000 Reichsmarks per aircraft. Total investment 56 million Reichsmarks, approximately £4.5 million at 1940 exchange rates. Britain spent more on obsolete aircraft and achieved greater results through volume. Democratic industrial capacity, focused on effectiveness, exceeded authoritarian efficiency, focused on sophistication. May 18, 1941. Kriegsmarine Headquarters, Berlin, Germany. Fregattenkapitän Wilhelm Schneider had dismissed the Swordfish as obsolete. May 27, 1941. Atlantic Ocean. He drowned as Bismarck sank, victim of aircraft he mocked. May 8, 1945. Germany surrendered, having lost 783 U-boats, 3 battleships, and naval supremacy. The obsolete biplane Schneider laughed at sank his battleship, destroyed 168 submarines, protected 847 convoys, enabled delivery of 14.8 million tons of supplies, and helped win the Battle of Atlantic. Their mockery became history's most expensive miscalculation, measured in ships lost, sailors drowned, convoys destroyed, and a war decided by industrial capacity rather than technological superiority. The lesson remains: dismissing democratic nations as weak because they prefer peace, or underestimating free people's productive capacity when mobilized for war, invites catastrophic miscalculation. Authoritarian regimes consistently overestimate their efficiency advantages and underestimate democratic industrial capacity. Germany learned this facing British swordfish production. The mathematics proved irrefutable. Free societies win industrial wars through production volume, operational integration, and sustained capacity exceeding authoritarian efficiency.